Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the absolute DNA of business organizations. We're going to discover exactly how companies are built from the ground up to balance risk, reward, and control. Because whether it's a neighborhood bakery or a massive global retailer, the legal framework they choose fundamentally shapes their entire destiny. Let's kick things off with a pretty high-stakes question. If your business fails, could you actually lose your house? It sounds terrifying, right? But the reality is, the way your business is legally structured determines exactly what you stand to lose. It's not just about what you can gain, it's about how you protect what you already own.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be moving through 6 key areas: the legal divide, solo versus team, the liability shield, the corporate ladder, alternate models, and finally, the ultimate choice.
All right, part 1, the big legal divide, unincorporated versus incorporated.
Think of it like this. With an unincorporated business, you and the business are literally the exact same entity in the eyes of the law. If the business gets sued, you are personally responsible. But incorporated businesses, they are entirely separate legal units. The business itself can sign contracts and maintain accounts independently, essentially acting as a completely new legal person.
Moving on to part 2, going solo or teaming up.
If you're just starting out, you'll probably look at the sole trader model. It's just one person, you, owning and operating the whole thing. It is incredibly popular globally, mostly because it's just so easy to get up and running with very few legal hurdles in your way.
But there is a serious trade-off here. On the plus side, you're the undisputed boss. You keep total control, you keep all the profits, and your business stays completely private. The downside, you're doing literally everything. You're the CEO, the marketing department, and the late-night janitor. Plus, banks kind of see sole traders as a risky bet, so raising money is really tough. And worst of all, you carry what is called unlimited liability.
So how do you fix that crushing workload and cash flow problem? Well, you can form a partnership. This brings together 2 to 20 people who formally agree to own and run the business together. Pooling your savings instantly gives you more capital to play with, and you can finally divide and conquer. Maybe you handle the marketing and your partner crunches the numbers. Sounds great, right? But it's highly recommended you get a written partnership agreement. Because when you share power, you run the risk of some pretty intense, time-consuming disagreements. And crucially, you still carry that heavy burden of unlimited liability. You're just sharing that massive financial risk with someone else now.
That brings us to part 3, the limited liability shield. Let's pause on that terrifying term for a second. Unlimited liability means that if the business fails, you can literally be forced to sell your own personal property, your car, your family home, to pay off the business's debts. If you're an unincorporated sole trader or a partner, your personal assets are completely exposed to creditors.
To protect against that nightmare scenario, owners use the shield of limited liability. This is a game changer. It means shareholders can only lose the exact amount they actively invested in the business. Your personal possessions are completely off limits. The absolute worst-case scenario is losing your initial investment, not your house.
Part 4, incorporated companies and building that shield.
Once you incorporate, the company is owned by shareholders who then appoint directors to run things. This usually comes in 2 flavors. First, you've got private limited companies, or LTD. These are often smaller, family-run firms where shares are only sold privately to keep control tight, though the paperwork is definitely a headache. Then you have public limited companies, or PLC. These are the massive heavyweights like Walmart. They can sell shares to millions of people right on the stock exchange to raise huge amounts of capital. But scaling up to a massive PLC creates this really fascinating paradox, a total divorce between ownership and control. Think about it. The millions of shareholders who own the company don't actually run it day to day. Directors and managers do. And this leads to a massive clash of interest. Shareholders usually want high dividends paid out to them right now, while the managers often want to hold on to those profits and reinvest them to expand the business long term. All right, part 5, alternate models like franchises and the public sector.
If you want to expand but don't want to start from scratch, a franchise is a brilliant option. Think McDonald's. It's a partnership of resources. The parent company, the franchisor, gives you their famous brand name, the training, and the big national ad campaigns. In exchange, you, the franchisee, bring the capital to open the doors, the daily local management, and the hustle to actually make it succeed.
Another route is a joint venture. This is when 2 completely separate existing companies team up for a brand new project. By joining forces, they can strategically split the massive costs and the inherent risks of an expensive venture that neither could really pull off on their own. And of course, they share the profits.
And we definitely cannot forget the public sector. These are corporations completely owned and controlled by the government. Think of large-scale infrastructure like your national railway or water supply. Their main goal isn't just churning out a profit. They exist to provide essential services to society. So while they might lack the aggressive efficiency of private companies, they ensure that the really crucial, sometimes unprofitable needs of a society are actually met.
Finally, Part 6, the ultimate choice in mapping your path.
When you put all these options together, a really clear pattern emerges regarding risk and control. You start out as a sole trader with absolute total ownership, but you carry terrifying unlimited risk. Then, as your ambition scales up and you build that corporate shield, you can go all the way to a public PLC. You gain the immense safety of limited liability, but you completely trade away your day-to-day control to answer to millions of public shareholders.
Which leaves us with one incredibly massive question to wrap up this explainer. If scaling a business to its absolute peak fundamentally means divorcing the ownership of the company from the actual control of it, who really holds the power in the world's biggest companies? Is it the shareholders who own it, or the managers who actually run it? The answer to that question pretty much dictates the shape of our entire global economy. Thanks for watching.